Can they hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Here I thought I was doing so well. Not so much.
Didn't recognize the microphone for some reason.
Hi, everybody. Pardon me. Hi, guys. It's been an interesting week. I've been really looking forward to today. Mostly because I really wanted to paint lemons today. Limoncello, this is such a fun piece to paint, and I had so much fun designing it. And it was inspired by a friend, and because she sent me a recipe, and which I'm excited to try again. So the piece is Filomena's Limoncello. It's going to be a fun piece to paint. It's not difficult to do, but the biggest twist on this one is how to get depth on a black background. That one is always a bit of a challenge. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to do this one. So I've been excited about that. It's been an interesting week, a bit stressful, just a little bit stressful. After Saturday's live last weekend, I ran into a little problem. I had a snack watching a movie with my husband and went into anaphylaxis. So ended up in the emergency room, spent the night at our local hospital. It was interesting. I have never had that before. So it was eating a snack that we have had before, eating something that I had no idea that was going to try and kill me, but it did. So I have spent most of the week on some pretty heavy steroids, medication, etc. So I've not been feeling 100% this week. It's been a heck of a few months. I seem to be, getting slammed with a whole bunch of things, and now an allergy tried to get me. So that's my 3. I think I'm done now. I got the 3 out of the way. So I've had, the asthma allergy thing, and then I had the shingles thing, and now I had the allergic reaction to snack food thing. So I think that's my 3. I'm good now. I should be good now. So I'm alive and well, and so keep your fingers crossed, knock on wood, whatever you need to do. It's just been one of those years for me. So, and the way I see it, I'm still on the green side of the grass, so life is good. I am alive and well. So who all is on here today? Patrick and Eddie, I've been thinking about you all week. I know you've been having a difficult week. Love to you both. To Deb Daniker and Deanna Swindlehurst. Hello, Deanna. And Kathy Williams. And, oh my goodness, this thing's flying by. And Becca Buckner and Phyllis Griffey. Hello, Phyllis. And Carrie Henderson. Oh my heavens, everybody's here today. Elaine Wiederman. Yeah, well, you know what? From your lips to God's ears. That's how I feel about it. I've had enough. And Tracy Craig. Hello, sweetheart. And Becky Underwood. Nice to see you, honey. And Kim Roberts McCutcheon. Hello. Thanks for joining us. And Tammy Hall Carmody. Hello, Tammy. And Diane Langevenblat. Hello, sweetheart. Hope things are nice in Ottawa. And Kelly Davis. And Terry Sellers. Oh, my goodness. Everybody's here today. And Elsie Sturm. Hello, sweetie. And Judy Galt. Debbie Marlowe. It's so nice to see everybody here. Thanks for joining me. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. It's so nice to have everybody here and see everybody. And Terry Greencorn. Hello, sweetie. I have some wonderful giveaways today. I got a huge box from Tombow today, this week. Huge box. So we topped up a bunch of the products that I always have on the website, drawing pens and pencils and mechanical pencils and my design essentials kit, those things. We topped all of that up this week, but there was also a bunch of goodies. Tombow is always so good to me. There was a bunch of goodies in there for giveaways, which is really nice. So this week we have a really nice giveaway, courtesy of Tombow and Dynasty Brush. Dynasty has got a really nice set of black gold brushes, a 3-brush set, nice little set, keep you going, and a beautiful drawing set from Tombow USA. It has all sorts of goodies in it. Some of my favorites, the drawing pens, my favorite pencils, of course, my black eraser. There's a bunch of good things in there. So really nice little complete drawing set from Tombow. We have 3 of those to give away today. So in order to get your name on the big wheel at the end of the day, all you have to do is join in the chat, say hi, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons. That's all you got to do. Just participate with us today. That's it. And that could get your name on the wheel. And at the end of the day, we spin the wheel. We give away 3 of these great little sets. So I'm very fortunate that I have companies like Tombow and Dynasty and DecoArt and Southern Ridge Trading and Painting with Deb and Sandy McTeer Designs. They provide me with all kinds of really great little odds and sods and gifts and giveaways and whatnot. And it just helps support this channel. And it also lets me thank you guys for showing up every Saturday. So that is what we're going to do today. I did have some happy mail this week too. I got some more cards from you guys, so thank you very much. Sandy Barton. And it's just really nice to trip down to the mailbox when you're, having a little pity party for one, and you find a lovely little note or a card from a friend in there. It's a great little pick-me-up, so thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Let's see. I thought I saw a question. I am feeling much better. Well, thank you, Linda. I do try. I do try. And Lorraine, yes, I am getting much better. It's just been, sort of one thing after another this winter and through the spring and into the summer. And then the allergy thing kind of caught me off guard. So I am now fully equipped. I have EpiPens in the whole 9 yards. So now I'm good to go. I have a ton of, what is that stuff? Benadryl. I have a cupboard full of Benadryl and an EpiPen. So I'm good to go. And let's see who else is in here. Oh my goodness. Nelda Sanders. Hello. Thanks for joining us, hon. And Dorothy Christian Holgate. Warmest greetings from Northeast Pennsylvania. That's so sweet. All right, guys, if you are ready to get started on our Limoncello, which is this piece right here. This is what we're going to be painting today. Limoncello. Lemons are very trendy right now. They're all over the place. You usually see them on blue backgrounds. I chose a black background because it kind of has that old world feel. But having a black background presents a few little issues. And so we're going to talk about those today. So I'm going to show you some fun ways to really make a black background serve you. So this is what we're going to be painting today is Filomena's Limoncello. This is such a pretty piece. I don't know what it is. There's something really summery and fresh about lemons. And I enjoy painting these. We're going to be using some pretty basic techniques to paint these lemons. These are not complex by any stretch. But there's a few little tricks to making a black background work for you as opposed to you trying to work against it. And so we're going to start with that. So here I've got my line drawing already on, and I'm going to grab, I've got a small stencil brush, and I've got a nice little dome blender, and we're going to start with a little bit of cobblestone. I avoid using warm white on black because it's such a harsh contrast. So we're going to use a little bit of cobblestone. So it's a gray value, but this one is a warm gray. It's got a nice gray undertone. And I'm going to use a bigger stencil brush, methinks, just to make this a little bit easier. So we're going to use a stencil brush for this. So I'm going to pick up a little of that cobblestone, and you want this brush to be dry. You do not want a ton of wet paint on this brush. And you're going to work in a circular fashion inside the borders, just like this. So you're going to put a cloudy, soft, blended effect into that background. And make sure you come right up onto the line drawing. So you can see, and it is very soft. It is going to be a bit mottled, that's all right. And when you run out of color, Come back and pick up a little bit more. So nice light touch. You don't have to work hard to do this, but we want to get that cobblestone onto the background. So what this is going to do is give us a little bit of contrast for shading. Have you ever tried to shade black? Black doesn't shade easily. So we're going to use a little bit of cobblestone to change the black slightly. So there we go. I've got that little bit of cobblestone in there. It's very dry and it's very light. Yep. So now we've established a slightly lighter value in that background. And when we're done, this is all going to read as black, even though it looks kind of foggy. So we're going to use an angled shader and a little bit of lamp black. And we're going to blend this out to float. Now we're going to lift these lemons off of this background with a float of lamp black. So we're going to put that black back in, but in a controlled fashion. So you're going to float in and around your lemons.
So inside the border and outside of the drawing?
Uh-huh. Just like that.
Patrick was asking.
Yep.
For some reason YouTube is acting up.
So that little float back there is going to lift and push your lemons forward. So it gives this surface a little bit of depth. Just like that. And it doesn't have to be a neat and tidy float. It's a black background. But having that change in value back there will lift the lemons off the surface. Otherwise, if I just left it flat black, then they appear to be stuck to the surface, which does nothing for this. So there we go. Little float, lamp black, just to lift that off the surface. So I'm going to dry this real quick. You can put the line drawing on after or before, it doesn't matter. Either one will work. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller angled shader. And I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to do it to the lettering. So little float of lamp black. And I'm going up against the lettering. I'm going to grab a little bit of some Joe Sonia here. My float did not want to move. There we go. So little float of that lamp black. Just like that. So I'm going to lift that lettering off the surface with a little float of lamp black. Just like that. Anytime that you float like this up against the lettering, it just gives it a little elevation. A little later on. Makes things stand out nicely. This is a little more forgiving because you're working on a black background with a black. So it doesn't give you as much grief. And you have a little more room for error. So there we go. We've got a little bit of limoncello. So if I bring that up, now you can see it stands up a little bit, quite nicely. So we are ready to start laying in a little bit of color. We're going to do that with a little bit of warm white. So you can do this with a little bit of gesso. I tend to gravitate towards warm white. I use it all the time, but gesso works just beautifully as well. I'm going to use a filbert, I think. Filbert or a round brush to do this. And this part is really simple. You're going to thin out a little bit of that warm white. It doesn't have to be fully opaque. And you're going to put down a base of white on your lemons. And you want these not necessarily to be fully opaque, but definitely covered. There we go. And I like to paint my lemons, well, any surface that I do like this, I like to make sure that it's painted in the shape so that it follows the shape of the thing that I'm painting. And this way, any textures that I create fall into the shape of the piece, so that I'm not having to work against it. Brush marks all fall in one direction so that you're not working against it. It just makes painting things so much simpler. Lemon. Now, whenever I'm working over a black background, as in this case, I like to use white to block in everything for a couple of reasons. One, it gives you a nice solid base to work on. You're not having to work against the color, to work against that black, especially with lighter colors. Colors like this yellow or this new leaf green. If you're having to work against it, it's going to be influenced by that dark color. But by putting down a layer of white, then it's influenced by the white, and then the colors tend to be a little bit brighter and a bit more lively. So using a white undercoat is, especially on a dark background, serves you in a lot of ways. And it's far less frustrating putting a base coat down when you've got something like this in. And we're not talking about a solid, fully opaque base coat. We're talking about just blocking it in, giving yourself a little bit of grace, and giving yourself something to work over top of. And as always, I like to leave a little bit of space between things. So if I'm working on, say, the segments of this lemon here, I'm going to leave a little bit of space between. So I'm just going to quickly stroke that in. Again, I'm not worrying about whether or not it's fully opaque or if it's perfect. It doesn't matter. At this juncture, it does not matter. We are just blocking this in so that we don't have to fight against all that black later on. And I'll leave those little spaces. Look at that. We've got lemons. So I'm going to dry this real quick. See. Yep. Hi, Margaret. There we go. Almost dry. Now, at this point, we're going to start doing the same thing for all of the other elements in here. So I'm going to use a little bit of warm white to block in those leaves. And again, I like to leave a very little space between each of those elements. It doesn't have to be much. Tiny little space. And it does not have to be fully opaque. Don't kill yourself trying to get this fully opaque when you don't need to. So all of these leaves, I'm using one of Deckwort's new colors for the leaf. It's called New Leaf. It is quite a transparent green, but it's such a yummy color, and it works so well for this particular piece. I thought that the green was just perfect for these lemons. For all of the greenery in this piece, I just thought it was spot on green. And it works so well with the yellows and then with the margarita, which is that high yellow green. So all of the greens involved in this have a very high yellow content. So they work very nicely with these lemons. So there we go. We're going to pull all of those greens, all of these leaves in. And I like to leave that little space. Don't forget to leave that little narrow space. It will save you so much in the end. Easy peasy. thinned out warm white. You're just filling in, blocking in space. And giving yourself a nice light base color to work over, so that it gets rid of all of that green, that black, so it doesn't gray out your colors. And this is what makes all of the colors in this pop, is that having that white base down makes all of those brighter colors jump off of that black background. Black has drama, lots of it. But it can take the life out of things too, just as easily. So come up here. We've got a little butterfly. I wanted to bring the yellows and a little bit of heat into it, and another element to sort of ground all of these other design elements. This is what sort of brings everything together. Almost like a visual anchor. Sometimes all you need is just a little thing. Whether it's a ladybug or a bumblebee or a butterfly, sometimes it's just that one little element that anchors your design a little bit. And in this case, without the butterfly, it looks like two separate design elements. And because the butterfly slightly overlaps this element up here, and then draws the eye down this way, so it acts like a bridge and it anchors the two elements together. In case you were wondering why I used the butterfly where I did, that's why. So remember this slice down here? I'm going to take my white and I'm going to go over. Oops, I got too much white. Sorry. Too much white. I overdid it. Wasn't supposed to bury it. It was supposed to. There we go. Okay, I got it. I just had a little too much white right there, so I can pull some off. There we are. So I have that little bit of white in there, and you can still see all of the wedges, all of the segments. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller, I've got a rigger here, and I'm going to paint the segments of my butterfly. A little too strong. So each of those segments gets the same treatment. Segments in the butterfly gets the same treatment as everything else. A little bit of thinned warm white. Don't forget to leave that little space. There we go. That little bit of white, pardon me, good heavens, a little bit of white in there just gives this butterfly a little more vibrancy. Again, if I were to just put those yellows and oranges over top of the black, it would be subdued and lifeless and kind of grayed out. And we really don't want that. We want the heat. We want that bright bunch of color in there. So we're going to put a little bit of white down so that it gets that. There we go. You see who all is in here. Miss Sheila. I haven't chatted with you in ages, my sweet. And I can't wait to see what you're doing next. Miss Sheila Landry is flippin' amazing. If you haven't seen her her treasure boxes, they're incredible. And God knows what she's up to now. I just when I think she can't quite possibly outdo herself, she manages to do just that. So I'm excited. You can't figure out how to enlarge the pattern to fit the piece. Gail, if you print the line drawing in the pattern to fit an 8.5 by 14 or legal format, it will be the right size. Just make sure to fit it to the page, make it actual size when you print it, and it will print. So we've got all of that. I'm going to dry this real quick, and then we're going to start working on my message box is full. Not surprising. Oh my goodness, 16 new patterns. Insane. I can't wait to see what you've done now. Hello, Darlene Greenwood. And Iris Rorwick. So, a couple of little things I'm just going to fill in. I love the little bit of white. Using this white just helps solidify the design too. It gives you an opportunity to sort of go around and, oh, okay, I need to put this in and put that in, and I do love busy. There we go. So we have all of our elements blocked in. I'm going to What's for dinner tonight? I'm making spaghetti. Yes, Bev, I thin my paint out to about like ink, even thinner. Doesn't have to be perfect. So, I think this is just about dry. A couple little wet spots here I'm going to take care of because I will put my hand in it. Now, my husband requested spaghetti. I think it's one of his favorite meals. Anyway, I know spaghetti is it's a favorite in this house. Anyhow, I have some wonderful flatbreads we're going to use up, and so I'll do those with garlic and lots of Parmesan cheese. And I got some wonderful fresh pasta. I didn't make any. I can make it, but I didn't this time around. I got some wonderful fresh pasta for the sauce, but I'm making a bolognese, big pot of bolognese. Good morning. What do I thin my paint with? This is what I thin my paint with, is Joe Sonia's Fast Dry Glaze. You can use water. Water will work too, but this is what I use. It's my everything medium. I float with it. I thin paint for line work. Anytime that I would have used water, I use this instead. And I just find it makes my paint more durable. It makes my floats a bit more consistent. It makes my line work more consistent. And it comes off the brush nice and smooth. That's the big thing right there. Yeah, I have a tendency to stick my fingers into wet paint. Never fails. So the base color we're using for these lemons is this one. This is, I have to say, is probably my new favorite color, is Baby Duck. I am absolutely in love with this color. It's just the best yellow. It's so pretty. And yeah, I use a ton of paint. I use a lot of paint. So I'm going to use Baby Duck to base coat these lemons. And again, remember what I said about following the shape of things? I do the same thing when I'm base coating with a color. I like to follow the shape of things. So that way, any lines, brush marks, foibles, little wobbles, bobbles, what have you, they fall into the shape of the lemon. They fall into the shape of the surface that you're painting. And so little flaws and things are less apt to show up. They're less likely to be noticeable because they have fallen into a pattern. So here is my yellow. Now this is going to take another coat, I think. But it's such a gorgeous yellow. And we're going to make it look even brighter. Love this yellow. It's a yummy, yummy, yummy color. Next week's class is already up on the website. We're going to be doing a little Christmas in July. I was playing with an idea the other day, and I just love it. I have a thing for holly and Christmas roses. And so we're going to be doing Simply Joy, which is a fun piece. It's not a hard one to paint. I'm going to have a little fun with a chicken wire stencil and some nice deep reds, making, country reds look really deep and kind of elegant. I'm a fan. I just love traditional Christmas colors, and so that's what I went to work with. Hello. What's doing the zoo? Nice, Cheryl. Thank you.
I don't know why it's popping up there.
Yeah. Right, it's not a touch screen. Renee got me a monitor so that I can see the chat, and I keep forgetting that it's not a touch screen. It's not an iPad, it's just a monitor. Cheryl D'Agostino made a donation to our Pupper Fund, Feed the Pupper Funds. Thank you, Cheryl. We appreciate you. So that little bit of Baby Duck, as I said, just follow the shape of the piece. And then you get a pretty decent base coat without having to, put layer upon layer upon layer on. A little bit of yellow. This Baby Duck is remarkably opaque for a yellow. Most yellows are terrible, and this one is actually quite good. And so it covers reasonably well, and particularly when you don't have to fight against all that black. Easy peasy. And I've got a little bit sticking off of this brush that is going to drive me crazy. I think you've all run into this. Do you see the two hairs sticking off of this brush? I don't know how that... Oh, there we go. Got one. I'm going to show you a little trick. Don't try to cut them off. Like, just snip them. This, actually, I got this piece of information from a brush manufacturer. Pull it down and away from the brush, and then try to snip it as close to the ferrule as possible. Don't try to snip it off up here. Pull it down and away from the rest of the brush. And then you won't interfere with the rest of the bristles. If you cut it off too short, it's going to cause a problem. It'll give you some heartache later on. Just pull the brush away, pull the hair away, down and away from the rest of the brush, and then snip it off as close to the ferrule as you can get. If you can't get it to behave, then that's what you do. Okay, so not bad. And then we've got this little wedge underneath here on the sliced lemon, on the cut lemon. Going to, there we are. There we go. So we have yellow. So I'm going to dry this real quick. Yep. So once it's completely dry, I like to go back in. I'm going to put a thinned layer of that baby duck over top. I'm with Patrick and Robin. You don't need water with potatoes. You need lots of butter. Lots and lots of butter. And Patrick is French. He should know the value of butter. Real butter, not margarine. So, thin it out. Just put a wash of that baby duck over top of all of it, like so. Now, I've thinned it out. The thing about it, putting a thinned wash on, is that it's easy to cover everything. Look at that. So little wash of thinned baby duck over top of everything. Look at that. Gives you a nice uniform look. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it does give you a bit more uniformity. Very nice. And if you've got any brush marks that are perhaps driving you crazy, that wash will take care of those. Now the thing to remember is that we've got at least 3 to 4 other colors going over top of all of this. So there's really not a point to pounding on layer after layer after layer of yellow. Tracy Craig, thank you very much, dear. In case you're wondering, we've got a pupper fund going again this year. We haven't decided what kind of embarrassing thing we're going to get Renee to do, but we will try something. In case you are wondering, that is what we're doing. So all of our Facebook stars, Any donations from that come through on the super chat made through the YouTube channel all go towards our Puppers Fund. There we go. Limoncello. Now, we're going to spend a little time focusing on our the sliced lemon here. I have a nifty technique for doing this. It kind of throws people off a little bit, but I have a nifty technique for doing this. So we're going to start with a little bit of that warm white, and we're going to paint in our pith. This is the pith. It's that white portion inside the rind of the lemon or an orange. Right there. We're just going to fill that in with warm white. Again, I'm not overly concerned with getting it fully opaque because we're going to put so many other things over top of this. But it needs to be a little brighter than the rest of the lemon at this point. So we're going to paint that in with a little bit of warm white. Just like so. And then each of those little wedges in between, just a nice little line in there is all you really need. It's just to make it brighter so that it becomes part of that pith. There we go. So we're going to have a fairly bright spot right here. Here we are. And then inside each of those little wedges, I'm going to use either a liner or rigger or, you know, some fine brush. And you're going to add sort of a little comma stroke or teardrop type effect. Just like that. And they're going to be fairly random, but they're going to be inside each one of those wedges. Just try to keep them small. That's all. Just like that. And I'm doing them quite bright compared to the rest of it. So now we've got all those little segments are full of those little comma strokes in bright white. Oh, you found the cranberry scones. I'm looking here. Who is thick? Oh my goodness. Deb Broomfield over the loudspeaker. I need a price check on Preparation H. eyes saw the title Limoncello. I'm on Italian, but my brain says it in Spanish, Limoncello. I'm hoping to get your cookies done and out to you this week. That's from Karen Jones.
Oh, I got Karen cookies.
Yep. Oh, Heidi, thank you. I'm glad you like it. So, lemons. So we are ready to start painting those lemons. I know that's a lot of prep work to get lemons, but here we go. So we're going to start by shading these lemons and building up a little bit of shape. And we're going to do that with a little bit of salted caramel. I love this color. You can use sunset gold. I'm going to use salted caramel. Sunset gold and salted caramel are pretty close. One's a little more yellow. Where's my sunset gold? That's deep over. I couldn't find my butt with both hands today. There it is. Okay. So, if you don't have sunset gold, you can use salted caramel. One's a little deeper than the other, a little more brown, that's all. And I do love my sunset gold. So, a little bit of sunset gold. This is our shading color for one of our shading colors, anyway. So we're going to come in here along the bottom of our lemons with that sunset gold. What are you giggling about? Dare I ask?
JL.
Oh no, what?
Oh, you'll see it.
Gee, that sounds familiar, Renee.
I'm not uncultured.
I know. Neither is JL.
Nope.
But it's just funny that you both said the same thing.
Yep.
That's all. Yeah. Lemon jello.
Lemon jello.
Yep. I said limoncello. He says lemon jello.
Yep.
Not quite the same thing. So I'm building up. Look at that gorgeous yellow on that
Potato.
baby duck. Potato, yeah.
No.
Okay.
Tomato potato.
Oh, tomato. Okay. Just going to, wreck all the languages today is what you're going to do. Okay.
Tomato potato. Same thing but different.
Oh, Sheila Landry, no more scares. You okay? One of the things I've discovered about getting older is that our bodies have a tendency to play games with us. And I never used to have a problem with eating, snacks and whatnot. But now apparently I'm allergic to something. We haven't figured out exactly what, but we've kind of narrowed it down a little bit. So we shall see. All I can say is it wasn't pretty. I had the whole Quasimodo looking thing going. It was interesting. So that little float, instant depth. Look at that. Just love it. Love it. Throw a little of that in there. Look at that. Great little bit of depth with just one color. Now, I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to deepen that with a little bit of asphaltum. Now, if you want this deeper and more yellow, then by all means, go for it. Put more yellow in. If you like the more high yellow, go for it. So that's dry. I'm going to bring a little more yellow in. I'm really liking, oh, yummy. Just such a yummy color. So, as I said, if you want to, don't be afraid to bring in a little bit of that salted caramel if you don't have that sunny day, or the sunset gold. Bring in a little salted caramel. It has that nice yellowish undertone, and then you won't have to go quite so dark with the asphaltum. Super easy. Just a nice little... I know everybody's fascinated by the way I float. I don't really float in the traditional sense. I load the brush the same way, but I don't really float the same way. So, look at that. Now, on the highlight side, you're going to need to put a little bit of that sunset gold up here too. Just a little, so that you have this open area for the highlight. Little float of that sunset gold. Doesn't have to be wide. It's a nice narrow little float. It just keeps this lemon from looking flat. Gives it a little more dimension. Look at that. So now we have lots of shape. So I've got a little bit of asphaltum. Love asphaltum. We're going to float a little of this in. Now you're going to thin this a lot. You don't want this colorful strength. It's very strong. So blend it out. Make sure you're working over dry paint. Imagine being named Limoncello and Orangello. Twins. So, a little bit of asphaltum is the color we're using to deepen that yellow in here and under those leaves. And it needs to be a little stronger. There we go. Little bit of asphaltum in there. This is our shading color, so we can get a little more aggressive with it to deepen those lemons. Now, asphaltum is a yellow-based brown. That's why it works so well over top of yellows. I use asphaltum for so many things. But when I'm shading yellows, it is just the ideal for toning all of those colors and deepening shadows without killing the yellow. So it maintains all that brightness, but yet we still get those, those darker shadows, which is what we're looking for. So let's dry this. And I'm going to give it one more float in a few areas. And you can always come back and deepen shadows at another time. Once you've got all of your other colors in. You are not required to get it all finished in one go. So I've got nice little shadow in there. I'm just deepening a few little things.
What do you do with all these paintings, finished projects? You must have so many.
Yeah, you could say that. 400 and I'd say there's close to 500 of them in here at this point, because some of them I've painted 2 or 3 times. So we're going to dry this real quick, and then we're going to jump over to the leaves. And there is a reason why I'm jumping over to the leaves. I'm going to avoid doing the highlights until I get the highlights in on these leaves, because I want to balance them all. I want to make sure that they're all in sync, and we can adjust highlights and whatnot then too. So I'm going to jump over to these leaves, and the color we're using is this one. This is New Leaf. This is such an unusual green. It's a very high yellow green, really a foresty color. I thought it was perfect for this because it has that same sort of waxy tone that lemon leaves have. It is a little on the transparent side, so it has a tendency to not cover as well as we would like. And because we're working on a black background, I did not want this green to be affected by the black so heavily. So I put down that white underneath. And then we've got one coat of New Leaf. It's a very pretty green. And one coat. Now, it's going to take another coat, I'm thinking, looking at this, but can you imagine what it would have been if I didn't put that white down? There we go. Very pretty green. Really pops nicely off of that black background. And it looks great with that bright yellow.
I bought some stars. I hope I did it right. I'm not all that technical for sure. We should only buy some for the pups.
Well, we appreciate the support of our pupper fund.
Think of it as a class fee for this awesome class. My granddaughter-in-law is a vet tech, and she was telling us that with this heat we're having, there have been several people bringing in their dogs with heat stroke and putting them down. Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
I'm a sap for animals. What is this? Missed the name.
We're saps for animals, too. We have a house full.
That was Heidi Allison.
Yes, Miss Heidi. Heidi must be a sap for animals. She's got all sorts of wildlife in her yard.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. She lives in a very lovely area, and she's always got bears in her yard.
We got trash pandas.
We have trash pandas and bears and deer. We suddenly had more deer lately.
I have seen a couple coyote scats.
Yeah, and we have coyotes in the area, which is not unusual. I always love how putting the greens in, putting the leaves into any piece that has either florals or fruit always just seems to bring everything to life. Like it just seems to pop. I think that's one of my favorite things. So There we go. Almost there. Got one more leaf to do. Look how pretty and vibrant that pops off. Just that one little coat of thinned warm white underneath makes such a difference in how all of that comes together. I'm going to switch to a round because I have some smaller leaves up here to do. There we go. Choop.
Oh yeah, we got foxes too.
Yes, we do.
Don't have roadrunners.
No.
We do have skunks.
And
Porcupines.
and yep, porcupines and marmots.
Oh, Bob's new home is under
Paul's shed, yeah.
Paul's shed.
A marmot in the neighborhood.
We called him Paul. Or Bob.
Bob.
Paul's neighbor.
Paul's neighbor, yeah. Choop, choop, choop. So almost there. Now the fun part, remember the butterfly that's up here? We don't have to base coat all the black on that because it's already done. Which is going to make life a little easier. But we are going to put some yellow and whatnot in there. Now the leaves on this, very typically of lemon leaves, they're kind of waxy and slick. So we don't have to put a whole lot of detail into them. But we do need to make sure that they're well highlighted and that they've got nice opaque color. And look at that. I love it. Love that new leaf green. It's really a pretty, pretty green. Seven cats, 10 birds. Oh dear Lord. Wild pigs in Texas. There's a part of Ontario and Manitoba that's dealing with wild pigs too. So remember the center of this one down here now that it's dry? This is a bit of a cheat, but you know, it's okay. We're going to take a round brush and a little bit of that. Remember the sunset gold that we used? We're going to put a wash of that over top of each of those wedges. Just inside that wedge is just a wash of that sunset gold, right over top of all of it. And this is sort of a cheat way to make that center, that wedge of lemon. So it kind of creates that, remember that look of those little tiny teardrop-like segments inside a slice of lemon or a slice of orange. So there we go. And then we're going to come back in and do a little work on the pith of this lemon as well, just to clean it all up and make everything nice and tidy. But it really is that simple. You can shade it a little bit if you want to, And then you can highlight some of those with a little stroke of white too, just to make them pop if you want. But for now, this is all we're going to do. So I want to dry this real quick, and then we're going to shade and highlight these leaves. And they're super simple, these ones. We're just going to shade with a little bit of either plantation pine or black green. Either one of those colors will work just fine. I'm going to switch to a small angled shader so that I have a little bit of control. I'm going to grab some plantation pine. Whoa, there's Facebook. All I was seeing was YouTube. Just all of a sudden there's Facebook.
All of it.
All of it, yep. So, a little bit of plantation pine. And we're going to shade in behind the lemons first. So that shadow goes right up against the edge of that lemon. Just want to get that depth first, that little bit of distance. Getting that darker green back there. And it just sets that leaf back and it pushes the lemons forward. So Renee and I are trying to figure out how we're going to get rid of all of these finished pieces. and we haven't quite figured it out, but we're going to do it so that our pupper fund benefits. That's our mission. But it's a lot of finished pieces. It's a lot of finished pieces. And it's not getting any smaller. Let's just put it that way. The pile is not getting smaller. So, bottom of this leaf here, you guys have probably heard me say this a million times. I usually shade the bottom of the leaf in a U-shaped float from side to side. And the reason I do that is because then it gives the illusion that there's a bit of a cup or a bend in the leaf. And so it gives it a little more dimension. And it's not just a flat leaf. So darkest value where the stem joins. And then just walk the float up to about the halfway point on either side of it. And that sort of U-shaped float, it helps give that little cup shape to the leaf. And that little bit of depth. So when you're separating things, like separating these leaves, I do the same thing. I treat it as a U-shaped float so that it gives you a little bit of depth. Up underneath that little leaf, there's that U-shaped float. So it's about halfway up the leaf there, comes down, and then halfway down. So it immediately gives the leaf a little bit of shape and a little bit of dimension. There we go. So once those shadings are all in and they're dry, then you are ready to put that shadow down the center vein of the leaf. So up underneath the flower, again, always think of it as a U shape. And it doesn't have to be a perfect float. You've got 3 other colors going over the top of this, so you don't have to make them perfect every single time. we go. Now those smaller leaves, these little ones off on the side here, I do the same thing. Little U-shaped float right at the base of the leaf where it joins the stem. Just a little float. Does not have to be perfect. North Platte and E, Nebraska. Right. North Platte, Nebraska.
Maybe allow us to bid on them.
We have to figure out a way to do that, though. So, I've got all of my shading in. I'm going to rinse out my brush, and then we're going to put the center veins in. Center veins are the key to how these are going to look. So, nice float all the way to the point. There we go. La, la, la. So that little float down the center vein of each leaf is what gives that a little direction. It tells you which direction that leaf is bending. And if they all go in the same direction, well, that's just boring. It makes things far more interesting if they bend in different directions. Now this piece, once you have all of that base coating, am I using black green or plantation pine on my leaves? I'm using plantation pine. You can use black green. You can use sap green. You can use any dark green. I like black green and I like plantation pine because they are so deep, but they're also a little on the transparent side, so you have room to maneuver. A raffle might be more fair than an auction. This is true. There we are. Getting these leaves done quick. So that little float in there, I'm just trying to get right to the point of the leaf. There we go. And then with all of that shading in, we are ready to start highlighting. Now I'm going to be using a little bit of margarita green. I like margarita. I like that high yellow, and it works so well with this new leaf. Gives us lots of that high acid yellow, yellowy green that we like. So I thin this out a little bit. I don't want it full strength because it can get to be a bit much. So on the highlight side, I'm going to bring in a little bit of that margarita. And much like the shading, I have a tendency to bring my highlight up both sides of the leaf. So we've got a little bit of margarita in there. So float on the upper edge. It's heavily thinned. I'm not using it full strength. Down the center vein. And then when I get to the point, I bring it up, almost a U-shaped float, onto the edge, outer edge of the leaf, so that we get a highlight on both sides, and it gives you a nice crisp leaf. Easy peasy. And I love this high saturation green. I like that really vibrant, bright yellow green. And it works so well with this lemon theme. And you get those nice polished leaves, typical of lemon trees. I wish that was something we could grow here.
Lemon trees?
Yeah.
You can grow a cherry tree.
I can grow a cherry tree, but I can't grow a lemon tree. I don't use cherries much, but I do use lemons a lot. I got a 12-pound bag of lemons this past week. And I peeled all of them and filled up my dehydrators full of lemon rind. And then juiced the remaining lemons. And now I have lots of lemon zest, dried lemon zest for baking one out for the rest of the year. I do love my anything with lemons. Jessica, question on the leaves. How do you know what side to put the shaded line? I generally look at the way the leaf is bent in the line drawing. So if the leaf, think of it as being flat, I usually put my shade following the curve of that leaf. So it's on the narrowest side because that's the portion that's furthest away from you. So I always put it on the narrowest side. Say narrowest side, narrowest side, narrowest side, narrowest side. I always put my shadow on the narrowest side of the leaf. And that just helps you enhance that curvature. And I'm going to show you something. Remember I said that I usually bring that highlight up the outside edge? I do. I bring it up here. So it's not only down the center vein, but I also bring it up the side of this leaf here to about the halfway mark. And that way I get a nice rounded over leaf. Highlight down to the point. Highlight side, and then I bring it up the side of the leaf. And so it gives you that accentuated bend. Now, because I'm putting a highlight on this way, a lot of it tends to mute that center vein that I just put in. So, and I don't really worry about that. So I've got my highlight in, but I've muted that center vein a little bit. So I have a solution for that. And it kills two birds with one stone. One, it reestablishes that center vein. And two, it deepens it a little bit. So I've got that highlight in. I've muted that completely. And then you have two options. You can use either asphaltum, which I'm going to use because I want to tone this a little bit. So I'm going to use a little bit of asphaltum in here. Doesn't mean it has to be strong, but I need a little bit of asphaltum. So I'm going to come in with a float of asphaltum and go up that center vein. And wherever I have a shadow, I'm going to put a float of asphaltum. So it does two things. One, it tones and deepens that shadow at the same time, but it also redefines that center vein a little bit without being too harsh. So just to give you a good idea. So look at this leaf right here. I'm going to come in with the asphaltum and deepen that shadow behind like so. So I've got that nice deep shadow back there. And if I dry it, when I put that highlight in, that center vein become a little muted. So I want to pop it. I want it to come right back. So I get nice, sharp, clean. So I need a nice lineation in there. So when I come back in with a float of asphaltum and I take it out to the point, I get nice, sharp definition in those center veins. So whenever you feel that your center veins are getting a little muted from highlighting, just go back in with either your shading color or, in my case, I'm using asphaltum. So you can go back in with a little bit of asphaltum, or you can go back in with a little bit of plantation pine. And it doesn't make your highlights go away, it just makes them pop. And it brings your center vein back to life. So I like using the asphaltum in this case because that is my toning color throughout this. And I don't want it to get any darker green, I just want it to be a little deeper. So underneath, down that center vein, oops. Just like that. So there's, you see, so we have 3 leaves over here that have not been deepened, but look at this one. Nice bright highlights, nice sharp, clean lines. Same here and here and here and here. So if I come over here, need a little bit of glaze. And I can bring that asphaltum in, deepen and tone that color. Look at how that leaf pops now. And then clean up that center vein and look nice and sharp. That little float of heavily thinned asphaltum is just enough to tone things without drastically changing the color. And then you end up with these nice pretty leaves. So we've got a few little leaves up here, up top here. Remember those little leaves? We're going to take that margarita out to the point. U-shaped float, just like we did for the shading. We're going to put a little U-shaped float at the tip of the leaf and come about halfway up. Margarita is just such a great color for highlighting these high yellow greens. And you can thin it way, way out. You don't have to use it full strength. Look at this. Pretty, pretty green. And it really does pop very nicely on that new leaf. And I bring a little of that over. Oops, a little too strong. There we go. A little bit out here. I love margarita. It's just a vibrant yellow green. It's opaque enough and a little bit transparent enough that it works really well for so many different things. There's that highlight on there. A little bit on the other side. Like I said, I like to come about halfway. It gives you just enough light. So much fun. Well, I use lemon almost daily. So I go through a lot of lemon juice and a lot of lemons. There we go. So again, I'm going to pick up a little asphaltum and I'm going to deepen some of those shadows and redefine those center veins. Anytime you feel that your center vein is getting a little lost or if it gets a little muted, just come back in with a little bit of your shading color, thinned, or a little bit of asphaltum. It makes a world of difference. And then you can redefine those little areas, those little details, so that they don't get lost. So little float of asphaltum just to deepen shadows and tone them a little. There we go. Lovely leaves. Very pretty. So now we're going to tackle these little flowers. And I love the little flowers. These are so simple. These are such a simple flower to paint. They're essentially just a giant comma stroke. We're not doing anything over the top with this. I'm using a little bit of warm white. I put a little Josanias in it just to make it go smoother, but quite honestly, you don't really need to do much. And I'm just using a comma stroke to bring these petals in. Like that. I like the simplification of this. Those simple comma stroke flowers.
What's this dust?
Oh, that's for my rain barrel.
For your rain barrel.
Yeah, it's the connector. Now, I like this method because it allows these flowers to overlap the lemons quite nicely. It also lets you leave texture in the petals. I've probably used a brush that's a bit too big, but that's okay. There we go. Simple little stroke work flowers. I'm a fan.
You got a 2 for 1.
I got a what? Okay. Yeah,
That's the connector.
that's the connector. Yeah, I know.
Vacuum sealed shirt.
Yep. Super easy. Everybody's talking about the Calgary Stampede. Deep fried Twinkies. almost done. There we go. So I've just very loosely stroked in those flowers. And I love it that way. I just think that these flowers work so much better when they're just loose and fun. So I need to dry these. Hi, Liz Minardo. How are you, sweetie? You know, there's a lot to be said for a simple little comma stroke flower. Oof. I'm having my tea. Let's see, who else? I am so glad to be back painting. I just, oh. I intensely dislike being sick in the first place. I don't like being told I can't do things. So nice loose flowers. I just think these are fun. I'm just going to make sure they're good and dry before I do this next step or I'm going to make a mess. There we go. So I'm going to let these flowers dry really well because they're still a little thick. I got a little heavy-handed with the paint. Oh, lemon curd is fabulous. Right now, I have about 3 liters of lemon juice in my fridge, and I will probably use it all before the month is out. So I'm going to paint our butterfly. So a little bit baby duck over top of that white. This is our color in our butterfly. So wherever you have those little white segments based in, we're going to paint those with baby duck. Because we're going to do a little bit of shading on our butterfly with another one of Decorwort's new colors, which is called Tea Berry. I love that color. It's a difficult color to describe. It's not quite a red, not quite an orange, not quite a coral. It's just such a pretty, pretty tone. And it's reasonably transparent, so you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. And one of the things that I've really taken to with it is shading flowers. I just love the color for shading whites. It's just such a pretty tone. But it also makes yellows incredible. It does wonderful things for yellows. So I'm going to base these white spaces in with baby duck. Now the nice part is that because this background is black and any little goofs and hoopsies that we make while we're painting this butterfly, we can fix very easily with just a little bit of black. So there, we have our baby duck in our flutterby. I want to make sure these flowers are dry before I do this next bit because I'll make a mess if I don't. How can you do all that lemon processing when you're sick? I can't sit and do nothing. I don't do sick well. If I'm in bed, then I'm really, really in a bad way. And if I'm not in my kitchen, I'm not in a good way either. But yeah, I have to do things. I can't just sit and do nothing. Renee knows this. So the color, oh, I dropped it. This is the color that I'm using. I love this. This is such an unusual color. It doesn't read as a red, and even though it looks like a coral in the bottle, when it's on the palette, it doesn't look like a coral at all. It is a really unique color, and it works. It works so beautifully for a lot of different things. I've been using it for highlighting reds. It's beautiful for highlighting reds. It looks fantastic on oranges and yellows, and it looks beautiful on white. And so we're going to use this and carry this color around this piece. So we're going to be using tea berry. Such a pretty, pretty color. It's very pretty. And I'm going to use an angled shader. And I'm going to blend this out. You don't want this color full strength because it's pretty in your face. And we're going to put a float of that tea berry. Remember that U-shaped float that I talk about all the time? I do it for leaves and whatnot. I'm going to do the same thing to the center. I got a little too much liquid in my brush here. I'm going to take that off because I've just messed that up. There we go. Okay. So we're going to put a little float at the base of each one of those petals in towards the center, like that. It's just going to put a blush of that sort of corally pinkish tone right in there towards the center of those flowers. And that little blush of color in there just does wonders. It's such a pretty, pretty, pretty coral pink, red, orange tone. I don't know how to describe it. It's just one of those really unusual colors. What are you chuckling about?
Just one of those, what the dog you own says about you.
Okay.
And the first one they attacked was Belgian Shepherds.
Well, of course.
Yep.
And what does it say about you?
Yeah, if you have a Belgian Shepherd, you probably struggle with ADHD.
Really?
You probably don't have enough problems in your life. Oh, well, thank you. You're not wrong.
Maize is... that's actually a really good description of a Belgian Mel. You know, they have ADHD.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they want to eat everything.
Everything has a flavor.
Yep, everything has a flavor. That's... Yep, we've discovered that. Maize is rapidly leaving the puppy phase. In some ways, I'm glad to see it go, and in other ways, I'm not. She's a handful, but she's a fun handful.
You can't say that dog does not liven up the house.
Oh, she livens up the neighborhood. People run.
People cross the street.
People cross the street, yeah. I laughed, you know. Oh, don't worry, my dog's friendly. Mine's not. And they sort of look at you kind of funny when you say that. Mine's not. She's not fun. She's not friendly.
Why would you have an unfriendly dog? Why would
She's getting...
you have a friendly dog?
Yeah. So, on the center portion of your butterfly, on that yellow area, you're going to put a float at the ends towards the center of each of the wing. You're going to put a little float of that tea berry right over top of that yellow. I just love the heat that this brings. Just makes these butterflies very lively. And it's just a little float. And you are working in a very small space, so give yourself a little grace. This color is so intense.
No, I don't want to work tomorrow.
You don't want to work tomorrow?
It's poo.
Is it just because it's tourist season, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't wait till we close on Mondays again.
So each one of those little segments, ta-da, gets a little float of that tea berry. And you can make it a little stronger if you like. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to do something that's going to make you crazy. Remember what we did to the lemon down here when we used that sunset gold over top of everything? I'm going to take a little bit of that sunset gold. Going to thin it out. You want to wash this yellow. And I'm going to make sure this is dry so I don't wipe off everything that I just put on. So we're going to put a float of that sunset gold over top of all of it. Over top of the tea berry, over top of the that little bit of that sunset gold changes that tea berry and that baby duck to a very hot orange. And so you end up with this nice vibrant butterfly.
Does kind of stick out.
A little bit. That little bit. If you don't have the sunset gold, try using a little bit of saffron yellow. It'll do the same thing. It's going to make all of those yellows just pop. So I'm going to grab a little bit of lamp black and a liner brush, and we're going to clean up our butterfly. A little bit of thinned lamp black and a liner. And it's just to put some of those spaces back in. That's all we're really doing. Because those spaces kind of get lost a little bit.
Would neon yellow work?
I don't know. It might. You need a high saturation yellow that's very transparent. And I tend to go towards the same type of yellows that we've already used. It just helps keep the design cohesive and balanced. Sometimes adding yet another yellow to something or yet another color to things throws it out of whack. That doesn't mean it wouldn't work. It just means it might not. So if you're already using that color, then just bring it in. So I'm just using that little bit of lamp black to clean up the definition of those little spaces. So now they're nice and clean. There we go. So now how do you get a black butterfly to stand out on a black background? So you're going to take your very fine liner brush and you're going to thin out either cobblestone or warm white. Cobblestone actually would work best. I'm going to grab some cobblestone. You don't want a harsh, hard white line around your butterfly, but you do want a very fine line to give it a little definition. Now I'm using a little bit of thinned cobblestone. And it is heavily thinned. There we go. And I use that same thinned cobblestone to highlight the antenna because they're black on black. And it is a very fine line. It is not a harsh one. And then you're going to use the warm white and either a liner or a rigger or whatever size you want to use. You're going to use that to add those little dots and dashes and lines, the details to the wings of the butterfly. Just like so. They don't have to be, does not have to be any rhyme or reason to them. We're just going to use a little detail. There we go. So you instantly have all the depth, but you don't have a hard outline in there. And if you want to really make this butterfly pop off the surface, you're going to shade under it. I'm going to use a little bit of thinned lamp black, and I'm going to shade here and here and on this wing here. Now that little float, all it does is just lift the butterfly off the surface a little bit. Doesn't need to be a lot, but just a little bit. That little tiny float does that. So for the body, remember we've got a body in the center here, and mine's a little bit lost, so I'm going to clean up that center a little bit. There we go. That body got a little lost in there. Believe it or not, we are so close to done. Doesn't look like it, but it is. So I'm going to use a little bit of thinned warm white, and we're going to put a little highlight on our body, like so. And then we're going to tackle the center of these little flowers. So in the center of each of these little flowers, I'm going to use a little bit of that baby duck. And I'm going to put, I know this is going to look really funny. I'm going to essentially make a little cup like that. So flat on one end, rounded on the other, like so. There. So I'm going to dry this real quick. Now the centers of these little flowers are pretty straightforward. They're really simple. So I just want to make sure they're good and dry. So we're going to put a shadow at the bottom of each of these little things. We're going to do that with a little bit of that tea berry. It's a little float right at the bottom, little U-shaped float. That's just going to give it a little shadow at the base. Doesn't have to be much. Doesn't even have to be perfect. It's just a little shadow at the base. Like so. And then we're going to put a shadow at the top with a little float of asphaltum. So essentially we're going to make like a little cup out of it. So a little half circle float, if I can get enough paint on the brush, like this. So I know it's going to be very hard to see it. Let me see if I do this on paper. Here we go. I'm going to grab a pencil just so I can explain this a little better. So in this center, it's a very small section, so it's essentially shaped like this. So we put a shadow across the bottom of it, like so, with a little bit of that tea berry. And then we have to create a little cup-like thing. So we're going to put a float like this. Just like that. So it creates that little cup. It's almost like a little tube in it. So the float goes in here like that. So the tea berry is at the bottom, and then the asphaltum goes in the top, like so, to create that little cup. Then on the inside of that cup, we're going to put 3 little dots like so. These are just done with a little bit of warm white, but 3 little dots in the center, just to create that little bowl or that cup inside the flower. So inside each one of those little yellow things, we're going to put that little cup. And it creates that sort of bowl for the center of the flower. So let me get that a little closer so you can see. You see the little cup in there? It looks like a marshmallow. Yeah, I guess it does. And then inside that little area is just those 3 little dots. They don't have to be perfect, but it's essentially just, the little stamens on the inside of the flower. Easy peasy. So I'm going to dry this real quick. And then we're going to come back to our lemons because it's time to start working on our lemons. So I'm going to take a little bit of warm white and I'm going to clean up the rind or the pith on my lemons. Just smarten it up a little bit. I want this to have a nice crisp edge. Like so. Oops. So our lemon is going to have a little brighter in here. Looking pretty good. And then we're going to, you can do this with either a deer foot. I like using a deer foot personally. So the one I'm using, this is a 3/8. It's a 300 series Dynasty Deerfoot. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of warm white. And I'm going to blot my brush because I don't want this to be full strength. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of that baby duck. And I'm going to blot it again. And then we're going to just lightly, on the highlight side of our lemon, lightly tap in that highlight. Now, I like to use the Deerfoot for a couple of reasons. One is it produces a really nice texture, sort of a stippled look. I like that texture. And I added the baby duck to this so that it didn't create a glaring hard white highlight right off the bat. I don't want a glaring hard white highlight right away. So, a little bit of baby duck. A little bit of white on the brush. I love the texture this creates. So, and it's a light stipple. You're not hammering away at it. We're not putting a ton of paint on. We don't need a ton of paint. And I love the texture of it. I just love how it gives the lemon sort of that rough dimpled effect. So a little bit of warm white. Now you have to look at your lemons and decide where your brightest impact is going to be. And I know where mine is. It's going to be on the upper left side of each one of those lemons. And so each time I pick up color, I'm adding a little more white and a little less yellow, so that the brightest yellow is going to be, or the brightest white highlight is going to be in that upper left portion. And it's going to be the smallest portion right there. So you get that texture, you get that light impact, and it's never a solid color. It should always have a little bit of texture. So there is my, and by using that Deerfoot and using layers, I get that texture. So I've got darker areas and lighter areas, and so my lemons take on that textured appearance, which is what we want. And we don't ever want this glaring, polished highlight. Still talking about lemons. So love the texture that this little Deerfoot creates. So I've got oodles of texture. Nice soft highlights. So now I need to start adjusting a few things. One of the things I need to adjust is the shadow that separates this lemon. So I've got a little float of asphaltum, and I need to push this lemon forward, and I need to deepen that shadow. A little bit of asphaltum underneath there. I need to get this little slice to move back a little, because it is in behind something. It's in behind another lemon. And I need this little flower to pop up. So we need a little float of asphaltum. Look at that. So that little bit of asphaltum, it doesn't take much. Because it is quite transparent, it doesn't get muddy. So I can put a thin layer of asphaltum in each time. It gets a little deeper, but it doesn't get muddy, and it lets that shadow get a little darker. So now our lemon is sitting back a little bit, and our little flower is sitting up a little bit. And I like that this lemon gets a little darker down here. So if at any time you feel that shadows aren't quite dark enough, make them a little smaller. There we go. Deepen them a little bit. It's your painting. You can adjust these shadows as much or as little as you like. You can do whatever you want. So there we go. So by adjusting those shadows, now that highlighter gets a little bit brighter. I don't want a really glossy, slick looking highlight on this. I want this to have that soft texture. Lemons aren't polished. They have a luster, but it's not a sheen. It's not super shiny. So having those softer highlights makes a world of difference. So to finish out these lemons, we have a few little things to do. We have a stem right here on one of our lemons. Just a little stem. And then we have a stem over here. I'm using a little bit of asphaltum to stroke this in. It's just a nice little wooden stem. And there's one here as well. And we want those to be nice and clean. It's important. Gives our lemons a little more realism. I'm going to use a little highlight on there. And a little highlight here. It's just using a little bit of that, what do you call it? Oh my goodness, my brain shut off. Just a little bit of the sunset gold, mixed it with the asphaltum just to put a little highlight in on the stem. Important that that goes in there. And on the underside of the stem, put a little bit of lamp black. Even though you're working on a black background, and it is a minute detail, but it is an important one, it has to have that shadow. So we have stems, and we have lemons, and we have leaves. So now we have to connect all of this. So we're going to use a little bit of that margarita green. Remember the highlight green that we used? We're going to use a little bit of that margarita, and I'm going to thin it out quite a bit. But I'm going to bring in just a touch of warm white. Not to make it a super light green, but just to give it a little more opacity. That's all. Just a little bit. So I'm adding just a touch of warm white to it. And this for me is just fun. I love this part whenever I'm painting. I just like it. This is where I add all of these little fun little details. So any little vein lines in the leaves, I like scribbly fine lines on the edges of my leaves. Keep them loose and fine. I don't like hard edge lines. I don't like solid outlines. I like loose and delicate. But those little details are what make all the difference in something like this. So it doesn't necessarily have to perfectly follow the edges of the leaf. If it goes off, that's fine. Who cares? I like that. I am a big fan of that. Those irregularities, those little imperfections. I think to me they are what make artwork far more interesting. So there is our, look at that. Little fine details. Those fun little curlicues at the ends of the leaf. They also help make these leaves stand out a little bit more. They provide some delicacy, I guess, something delicate and feminine and soft. And they just in general make things look pretty. So for the rest of this, pardon me, is mainly just going to be a little bit of fun detailing. The one last big thing that we have left to do is that lettering, the limoncello. And that is, for me, I love that part. This is just the best thing. So, detailing my leaves, I love that the leaves are not perfect. I love that these little lines sort of go outside of the surface, that they're not even necessarily the same shape as what I'm working around. I like the little oddities, those little miniature details that you put in. Stroking those in makes things softer. And I love that it can also hide a multitude of sins. When things don't look absolutely perfect and you start putting in all of these little curlicues, all of those little things that you saw as a flaw suddenly become part of the overall design, and they're less noticeable to anybody looking at them. Most people don't even see them ever. I know for us, they stand out like, a bear on a bicycle, but quite honestly, they're not important. All those little things that you see as a flaw are completely unimportant in the grand scheme. So look at that. So we have pretty little leaves and simple little highlights. And all of those little lines that perhaps detract from the things that we thought were negative or bad about our work suddenly become delicate and pretty. And those little flaws become far less important. So there, we've got, look at that, all of our leaves. Look how pretty they are. Delicate and all interconnected. We haven't put the vines in yet. We'll do that yet. So, limoncello, we're going to use, I'm going to be using a number 2 rigger to do this because this one is actually really a simple one. This lettering does not have to be perfect. So, a little bit of thinned warm white and a number 2 rigger. The paint is going to be about the consistency of milk. And you're going to press down till the brush fills the space. And then when you release the pressure, it's going to come up onto the chisel edge. And the nice thing about a rigger is that it has a chisel edge, just like a flat brush does. And so you can do all kinds of cool things with it. And I'm doing all of the vertical portions first. Oops. Ew, my brush decided to go sideways. Oh, Lord. So when you mess up like I just did, you just take a little bit of water, like so. Thin out your paint. Take a piece of shop towel or paper towel and just blot it. Et voila. I got too much water, not enough paint in my brush, and it bled everywhere. So let's try it again. Much better. See, some days I can mess up the Lord's Prayer. I don't always get it right the first time. Sometimes I can seriously mess up. Just like I did. Not everybody gets it right first time. Me included. So little practice with that rigger, and it's amazing how easy lettering becomes. And voila. Limoncello. So I'm going to dry this real quick. And then we're going to do a little bit of shading on this lettering because it needs some shading. And then we'll do some final detailing. Bev, I'm using a number 2 rigger. So I'm going to make sure that this is really good and dry because I've got a couple of little things left to do. We're going to shade this lettering, a little bit of asphaltum. At the bottom of the lettering. I like a little float at the bottom. Does a couple of things. It grounds the lettering, gives it a little bit of weight. It doesn't feel like it's floating in the middle of the surface. And it also grounds it to the rest of the design. The brush for the... sorry, Beth, that was a 10-aught extra long detail liner. It's a Dynasty Micron. So, there's my limoncello. Now I'm going to break out one of my favorite toys, because you know I'm going to. I love my black gel pen. I use my black gel pen for a lot of things. And one of the things I'm going to use it for here is just to put a little detailing at the base of these petals, like so. And it's just a few little short strokes of black in the center. If you want to, you could do this with a liner brush, but honestly, the gel pen is faster and certainly easier. And gives you a little bit more control. The other thing I do is I like to put a scribbly line around the outside edges of things. In this case, I put it around the outside edges of these little flowers, just for giggles, because I like it. And this is a fun and easy piece. So there's my little sketchy lines inside the center of my flowers. It's just a little series of little hash marks, nothing major. And then I like the scribbly outline on my flowers, and I like to keep it very loose. Much like I did with the outline on the leaves, I don't want them to be hard, solid. So just keep them nice and loose. All around the outside edge. Like so. Easy peasy. It's a light way to detail these petals, gives them a little body, a little more substance, a little more visual weight without drastically changing them or adding a heavy outline to them. So I like it. So little flower. And then one last detail for the centers of those flowers is to add a little bit of white in and around here. Just a few little dip dots. Just adds a little texture to the centers. Nothing over the top, and it's just a few little dots of white. Keep it light, keep it simple.
I like the spatter of white on the original.
Yep, well, we're going to do that next.
It makes the writing look like it's from a fountain pen.
Yeah. So the final thing that we do to this, we're going to add a simple white border to the edges of this, and I'm going to show you a cheat. And then I wanted to show you guys something too while I've got your undivided attention, because this is so cool. I'm kind of obsessed with this stuff, you know, a little bit. So there's a simple white border on the edges of this. You can use a ruler if you choose to. I'm using one of my favorite things lately. I'm using a Posca pen. I'm going to dry that paint because sure in hell I will smear little white dots. Jessica's going, mine, mine, mine. Okay, I have a knack for smearing things. So, white Posca pen. I'm obsessed with these things. I love my Posca pens. So, you can draw the border in. You can use a ruler if you like. I kind of like the freeform thing if you can get it, reasonably straight and level. You're laughing. But for this piece, I think it's an important part to have that white border on because it sort of speaks to the sort of old world look of this, which appeals to me. So, kind of has that, homemade or handwritten look. But to make sure that it stays straight and level, don't torture yourself. Give yourself a ruler. I'm going to line that up. Good heavens. There we are. So, Posca pen to put that little white border on. You could do it with a white gel pen. You could do it with any white paint pen if you wanted to. If you're really feeling energetic, go ahead and do it with a liner brush. A little thin warm white will all work. So the final thing to do to this piece is to add a little bit of spatter to this just to give it a little oomph. And I'm going to use my favorite fugly brush. You can tell it's a fugly brush. Look at this. It's tragic, but it's my favorite. It works really well. So I'm going to thin out a little bit of warm white heavily, lots of water or glaze, either one. And I'm going to focus around the lettering. I really like that sort of distinct spatter pattern close to the lettering. A little bit here and there. And there we go. Limoncello. So while I've got you sitting here and I have your undivided attention, I just realized I didn't put the vines in. My goodness.
All over the place.
I'm all over the place today. Hello. So, a little bit of margarita, add a little bit of warm white to it. And we're going to add, I love little vines and tendrils. I'm a firm believer in them. Little vines. I think you need to have those little vines. There we go. And I think we need one up here. Well, there was supposed to be one there anyway. There we go. There we go. I've got vines. There. So, there's limoncello. I wanted to show you this. There is a huge trend right now in the acrylic paint industry. Posca pens are extremely popular, and they are fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I have all kinds of them. But I wanted to show you something really fun. For those of you that are looking for a paint pen but perhaps don't have the $60 budget for the Posca pens, I wanted you to see these. These are made by Sharpie. These are paint pens, acrylic paint pens. They're called Sharpie Creative Markers. And I wanted you to see these because of this. One, super smooth. And this is acrylic paint, by the way. Very opaque. Very smooth. They work so well. They work beautifully on paper. They work well on painted surfaces. And I have to show you this. So this is on Prussian blue. This is on top of dark blue acrylic paint. Look at that yellow. And that red. And that, like, they're so opaque, and they're so impressive for a Sharpie. I know we dismiss Sharpies because it's a Sharpie, right? So you can get a set of these for about $12. So very reasonable if you're looking for something for posters, for detailing, for adding to, big canvases or whatever. Just have a little bit of fun with it. Don't dismiss these out of hand. Right? The price point is just great. The opacity is fantastic. They cover beautifully. Nice bright colors. Go and check them out. I think they're well worth it. I mean, certainly a great value. And I have to say, I was seriously impressed. I don't know if they have a white one, but I'm pretty sure they do. And yes, actually, it is acrylic. So yeah, you can rush right over it. You can put varnish over top of it. I already tested it. Yeah, quite impressed, I have to say. And I got these, believe it or not. Amazon has them. They're available at staples.ca as well. And you can find them on Amazon. Very affordable, and the colors are absolutely fantastic. I've tried them on a number of different surfaces. So just something I wanted to show you guys, because I thought, not everybody has the budget for the $50 Posca pens, but this makes a really nice alternative, certainly an affordable one. So there you go. I had to have my say. The wheel.
Or not.
Look at that. $17.99 on Amazon for a 12-pack. I'm quite impressed by that, by them. Quite impressed.
You got them for 12.
Well, and I only got a set of 5. And that was off Amazon.ca, so. What are you doing?
I am trying to get that working.
Oh, okay. There we go.
It's not popping up on here. Automatic. There.
Awesome.
Change it every time.
So just to catch you up, bring you back up to speed, the giveaways today are courtesy of Dynasty Brush and Tombow USA. I absolutely love Tombow products. I think you guys know that by now. And, but we have 3 beautiful drawing sets to give away from Tombow. They're valued at about $25 a piece. Plus, there's a nice little set of Dynasty Black Gold brushes included in there. So you're going to get a little create bag and some other fun stuff from us as well. So we have 3 of those to give away today. Total value is about $60. That's pretty good. So we're going to see who is getting some happy mail this week.
Yep.
Well, maybe next week. It's Canada Post. Milena Lanka. So just head over to the website at tracymoreau.net. Click on the little speech bubble in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send us your shipping information so that we can get your goodies out to you as soon as possible. We like to get them shipped the same time, as quickly as we can.
I wrote the whole.
Oh, good. And 2 more.
2 more.
Carol Henry. Carol, make sure you pop over to the website at tracymoreau.net. Click on the little speech bubble in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send us your shipping information so that we can get your goodies out to you as soon as possible. And remember, anything that is not claimed within 10 days goes back into the bin, and we use it for future giveaways. And we are currently collecting a ridiculous amount for our 12 days of Christmas. Insane.
12 days of Christmas is going to be good.
Yes, it is. We have amazing prizes. And Karen Knowles. All right, ladies, don't forget, send us your shipping information. Again, just go to the website at tracymoreau.net, click on the little speech bubble in the lower right-hand corner, and send us your shipping information so we can get your goodies out to you as soon as possible. Next Saturday, we are painting a little bit of Christmas in July. It is called Simply Joy, and it's another in that little cup series. We're doing a rusted enamel cup with holly and a little bit of Christmas rose, so I think it'll be a fun piece that you'll really enjoy. I know I had a great time painting it. And we've got more coming up. We have another Christmas in July the following week. So for the rest of the month, you're going to be painting Christmas. So we're going to have a lot of fun in the next few weeks. So thanks so much for joining us as you do every Saturday. We appreciate you so much. And thanks for coming and playing in the sandbox. We love having you guys here. So everybody have a safe and enjoyable weekend. If you've got bad weather coming, batten down the hatches and look after yourselves, and please stay safe. Mwah! We love you.
Pet your dog.
And pet your dog.
Eat the buttons.
I'm trying. Oh, that's not working. There.